I, Johan Liebert, was not born by chance, nor was my twin sister Anna. Our existence was the product of a grand eugenics experiment orchestrated by the brilliant Franz Bonaparte. Our mother, Vera Serna, was chosen to be the carrier of this experiment. She gave birth to 2 children with exceptional intelligence and flawless appearance. After our mother was released from confinement, we moved into the Three Frogs building in Prague. To avoid drawing attention, our mother dressed us as identical girls, making it appear as though she had only one child. We lived a quiet life, but everything changed in 1981 when Bonaparte and his assistant Petr Kapik appeared before our family. They informed us that one of us would be taken to the Red Rose Mansion for experimentation. In a cruel twist, Bonaparte staged the situation such that our mother had to choose which twin to give away. At first, she handed over me, Johan, but then changed her mind and gave up Anna instead. It is unclear whether she knew which child was which. This event left a deep impact on me, Johan Liebert, for the rest of my life. I have always questioned whether our mother was trying to protect me or if she had confused me with Anna. As I remained alone in the Three Frogs, I found solace in reading The Nameless Monster, a picture book penned by Franz Bonaparte under the name Himmelschar. But my isolation was short-lived, as Anna eventually escaped from the Red Rose Mansion and returned to our hall. I asked Anna to describe her experience at the mansion, but in the confusion and chaos, I began to mix up her memories with my own. Soon, I came to believe that I was the one who suffered through the horrific events at the Red Rose Mansion. But our situation took a turn for the worse when an individual informed us that we would have to live on our own. With no direction or purpose, Anna and I burned down the Three Frogs and ran away. As we wandered aimlessly, we eventually met a middle-aged couple who showed us kindness and offered us sandwiches. I confided in Anna that I had a plan to kill our new caretakers and continue our wandering journey. After wandering for some time, my twin sister Anna and I collapsed from exhaustion in the mountains near the Czech-German border. Fortunately, we were discovered by a patrol officer named Helmut Wolf, who saved us from our near-death experience. As he looked through my bag, he found only one thing: a copy of The Nameless Monster. Fascinated by the book and the boy in front of him, he decided to name me Johan after the monster and the story. My sister was given the name Anna. Despite his kindness, Helmut Wolf had no choice but to send us to separate orphanages. Anna was sent to Orphanage 47, while I was sent to Kinderheim 511. When I arrived at Kinderheim 511, I was already seen as a unique case. The orphanage was a secret facility in East Berlin, focused on creating perfect soldiers through experimental means. Eventually, I realized that I had no interest in becoming a perfect soldier. Instead, I began to see myself as someone who could manipulate and control those around me to achieve my own goals. And so, I plotted a massacre at Kinderheim 511, using my intelligence and cunning to turn the other children against their captors and take control of the situation. The event would become known as the Kinderheim 511 Massacre, and it would mark the beginning of my journey towards becoming the ultimate puppet master. My sister and I were adopted by Michael Liebert and his wife. At first, they only wanted to take me, but I refused to leave my sister behind. Fortunately, they agreed to adopt Anna as well, and we were welcomed into their family. Together, we left behind our past in East Germany and fled to Dusseldorf in West Germany in 1986. It was a new beginning for us, and we were determined to make the most of our new lives. I remember that night vividly, the night when I had to take matters into my own hands. Franz Bonaparte, the so-called monster, had found us. I knew he was going to take us away again, just like before. But this time, I wouldn't let him. I killed our adoptive parents, Michael and Mrs. Liebert. Anna woke up to the gunshots and found me standing there, armed. I knew I had to protect her from the truth, so I gave her the gun and told her to shoot me. It was the only way to keep her safe. She did as I asked, and I was taken to Eisler Memorial Hospital, where I was operated on by Dr. Tenma. I was lying there, unconscious and in critical condition, about to undergo surgery. Dr. Tenma was just about to begin the operation when he was suddenly interrupted by the hospital director, Udo Heinemann, who demanded that he leave and attend to Mayor Rodecker instead. Dr. Tenma hesitated for a moment, remembering a similar incident that he had regretted in the past. But ultimately he decided to proceed with my surgery. I was fortunate that he did, as the operation was successful and I survived. However, Dr. Tenma's decision to operate on me instead of attending to the mayor proved to have dire consequences. Mayor Rodecker died as a result of his delayed treatment, and Dr. Tenma was punished severely for his actions. He was stripped of his position and his chances of career progress were ruined. I couldn't help but wonder if my life was worth the cost of his career and reputation. Filled with rage, the surgeon, Tenma, approaches me. who he thinks is unconscious, to vent his anger. He proclaims that he was not wrong, and that Udo Heinemann is not a doctor, but rather a filthy money monger. He wishes death upon the Eisler Memorial Director, but little did he know, I am not only conscious, but also very grateful for Tenma's decision. I owe him my life. That's why I decide to repay my debt by granting his wish. I use poison candy to kill Udo Heinemann, along with Dr. Oppenheim and Dr. Boyer. Then, I disappear from the hospital with Anna. On the same day we escaped from Eisler Memorial Hospital, Anna and I ran into Reinhard Dinger, who had come into trouble with the authorities for attacking a man. I told the police that Dinger was not at fault and that the abuser had attacked him first, saving him from potential jail time. Out of gratitude, Dinger offered to drive us to our home, but upon discovering we had nowhere to go, he allowed us to stay at his apartment for a couple of days. While eating dinner and watching the news, Dinger expressed his disdain for the world and muttered that the scum should all die. I agree with him, stating that we don't need those kinds of people. This comment seems to mark the start of Dinger's murderous tendencies. Later on, Anna and I travel to Heidelberg, where I leave my amnesia-stricken sister in the care of the Fortners until 1995. From there, I go to Munich and stay with a family under the name Franz Heino from March of 1987 to April of 1988. I move on to stay with various families. Through my travels and stays with different families, I continue to hone my skills and gain new knowledge, preparing myself for whatever may come next. And at the age of 15, I set up a money laundering business which becomes very prosperous and well known in the German underworld. I eventually get bored with the underground bank and abandon it, leading to a massacre and the end of the organization. From 1993 until I abandoned the bank, I start hiring serial killers around Germany to murder my former foster parents. One group of killers is led by Adolf Junkers and his partners. In 1995, I betray the group, and Junkers is hit by a car while trying to escape, sustaining a head injury. Kenzo Tenma treats him, and he miraculously recovers. However, one night, Junkers runs out of the hospital in terror, and Tenma chases after him. We end up at an abandoned building, where I shoot and kill Junkers, leaving Tenma severely shocked. I go to Heidelberg in May 1995 to pick up my long-lost sister, who now goes by the name Nina. I start interacting with her anonymously via email. I send her a message requesting that she meet me at Heidelberg Castle. I hire 2 corrupt cops to kill the Fortners while Nina is out, and I pay a gardener at the castle to make sure she doesn't leave the premises. Tenma later arrives at the castle and escapes with Nina, foiling my plan. As I travel to Frankfurt, I begin to target an organization led by neo-Nazi leaders the Baby, Professor Gunther Godelitz, Peter Kapik, and Helmut Wolf, who believe that I will become the next Adolf Hitler. Meanwhile, Tenma arrives in Frankfurt investigating the murder of the Springers. I annihilate Godelitz and his henchmen and leave Nina a message telling her to meet me at the ruins of the Hilden and Angels warehouse in Romer. I then leave a message for Tenma on a water tower that reads Hilf, Das Monstrum and mere word Exploderin. After these events, I leave to pose as a law student at the University of Munich. I had always wanted to get close to the former business tycoon, Hans-Georg Schuwald. I knew my ultimate goal was to end his life and gain control over Germany's economy. On the day of Schuwald's book donation ceremony, I planned to burn down the ceremonial room. I convinced a woman to ignite a trail of oil to initiate my scheme. Roberto was initially supposed to ambush Tenma on the 2nd floor of the room and use his sniper rifle to kill Schuwald. But I changed my mind and instead decided to show Schuwald a scene from hell. During the ceremony, as I aided Schuwald to the podium to make his speech, I whispered into his ear, many people to see you. A huge flock of them. Schuwald picked up on the illusion and ordered all of the visitors to leave the building. It was too late, however, as I soon after queued for the Suede woman on the 2nd floor to ignite the oil, thus setting all of the books alight and causing the visitors to panic and selfishly topple over each other. As the books burned and the visitors tried to escape, I calmly stood on the stage with an equally fearless Schuwald and informed the tycoon that I no longer wanted to kill him. When Schuwald asked me where I was from, I peered into his decrepit eyes and answered him, saying that I was born in a town straight out of a fairy tale, and that I and my other self were the only people in the world, nameless. This act and answer instilled fear into Schuwald, leaving him wide-eyed and frantically shaking. Shortly afterward, out of the smoke and flames came Tenma. As he got off the stage and began to walk towards the doctor, I pointed to my forehead, tempting Tenma to shoot me. Just when it seemed Tenma was going to perform the deed, Nina arrived and yelled out to him, claiming that he must not shoot me. Unfazed by his sister's presence, I simply walked by Tenma into the smoke and flames and disappeared. Later, I disguised myself as my sister Nina and adopted her personality and sense of fashion. First, I murdered Reinhard Biermann, the headmaster of Kinderheim 511 before my enrollment, as he was in possession of a tape from my youth located in an undisclosed safety deposit box. I then tracked down Inspector Zeman and two of his subordinates, former members of the Czechoslovakian STB who were trying to obtain the tape for the purpose of selling it, to a factory setting where they were torturing Wolfgang Grimmer for information about the tape's location. Upon interrupting the interrogation, I shot one of the subordinates in the head, before apparently allowing Wolfgang Grimmer to kill the other two by manifesting his magnificent Steiner persona. I began to frequent a local bar where I connected with Zeman's one-time protege, Detective Jan Suck, who was smitten with me. However, the courtship was merely a means to an end, as I used poisoned whiskey bonbons to kill Suck's boss and other corrupt policemen involved with the STB who had been trying to obtain the tape in a manner similar to my previous poisoning, deflecting blame and suspicion for the murders onto Suck. My efforts to acquire the tape led me to Suck's mother, who allowed me to see it and copy over a message for Tenma. It was a vital piece of evidence that would help me to finally bring the truth to light. Meanwhile, to exonerate Grimmer from false suspicion of murdering Biermann, several of the orphans who were previously in his custody banded together to find the mysterious blonde lady. Thanks to their efforts, one of them, Milosh, was successful. I took advantage of my Anna guise and invited the boy back to my apartment. I told him he should find his lost mother, but cruelly imparted that if he couldn't find her, then he had no place in the world. I then sent Milosh to look for his mother in a nearby red light district. It was only through Grimmer and Tenma's narrow intervention that the boy didn't commit suicide after failing to find his mother and witnessing several forms of human depravity along the way. Before departing the city, I proceeded to burn down the Red Rose Mansion after giving a distant speech to my mother's portrait. It was a symbolic act that represented my complete detachment from my past. The perfect suicide was my last goal. I wanted to erase myself from the world, and by doing so, I had to get rid of everyone who knows me in my past. Just like the character Johan in The Nameless Monster, I wanted to be the last one to know my identity. Before killing myself, after abandoning my plans, the last piece I needed to get rid of was Franz Bonaparte. But before doing so, I finally met with my sister and told her about all the horrible experiences I had supposedly undergone at the Red Rose Mansion. Nina told me that I was wrong, revealing to me that the story is not mine to tell, as she was the one who went to the mansion. I then listened to my sister's story, which left me smiling, yet saddened and tearful all the same. As Nina was unable to shoot me after seeing the expression on my face, I left the site of our reunion. I went to the remote village of Ruhenheim and destroyed the town's peace by instigating a massacre by playing on the doubts, fears, and innate greed associated with human nature. In the midst of it all, I visited a small cottage on the edge of the town where I found piles of drawings of myself and my sister as children. According to Nina, who visited the same place shortly after, I had been crying as I sorted through the unfinished sketches. I then traveled back to the center of town to meet Bonaparte and Tenma. After I arrived, Tenma immediately took aim, but was then ambushed and disarmed by Bonaparte from behind. Bonaparte then aimed the gun at me and suggested that we both die together. Before Bonaparte could shoot, he was executed by a gravely injured Robertal. With no one else left to interfere, I asked Tenma if he had finally realized that the only thing all humans are equal in is death. I then showed Tenma the scenery of the doomsday, which he was temporarily overwhelmed by. Nina arrived on the scene and pleaded with Tenma not to shoot me. She then told me that she forgave me. However, I rebuffed her forgiveness, claiming that some things can never be amended and there is no turning back. I then tried to provoke Tenma into killing me by holding a gun to the head of a young boy, Wimna, but instead, I was shot by the boy's alcoholic father. I had been saved yet again by Dr. Tenma. The urging of Nina and Heinrich Lund had led to another operation. After visiting my mother, Tenma came to see me at the state police hospital where I had been unconscious since the massacre. During our meeting, Tenma told me about his recent work with Doctors Without Borders and how life had progressed since Ruhenheim. He then revealed to me that I had a name. In that secluded moment, I appeared to jolt from my coma and sat up, staring at Tenma. Horrified and seemingly paralyzed, Tenma silently listened as I began retelling the story of my mother's choice. I pointedly asked the doctor to explain who was the unwanted child, trapped with wondering if my mother accidentally made a mistake. We were left with a single question: who is the real monster? It is unclear whether this conversation was a hallucination that Tenma experienced or if it was actually real. Either way, as if awakening from a dream, Tenma gave no response and departed shortly thereafter. My fate following this is unclear, but my hospital bed was seen empty in the ending credits with a breeze blowing in from an open window, ambiguously implying that I either escaped from the hospital and continued my vengeful path, died while in a comatose state, or committed suicide after finally learning my true identity.